Mic check 1 2 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and I wanted to talk about video game collecting and the methods that we were using back in 2020 and 2021 that just no longer work in 2024. Now, there are three specific ways that every YouTuber used to tell you that you should try when trying to go out about collecting and buying and picking up video games. And I kind of wanted to go through those three and talk about why they don't work now in 2024. And if they do, they only work in certain areas. And the first one that I'm going to talk about is yard sales and thrift shops. So I remember back in 2019, 2020, and even in 2021, the big and most famous thing to do was to drive around your neighborhood, maybe go on Facebook Marketplace, or maybe check Craigslist or your local paper to see if someone near you was having a yard sale. And I remember there used to be tons of videos where people would, talk about these amazing scores that they would find, these, amazing boxes filled with retro games at yard sales that people would be selling for $5, $10, $20, things of that nature. And now in 2024, I just don't think that exists anymore. I typically am on YouTube a lot. I mean, of course, I post a lot of YouTube videos. And whenever I'm on YouTube, I don't really see the amazing pickup videos, the volume of them that I was seeing maybe 2 and 3 years ago. And I think it's just because it's no longer a viable option. Now, I myself have not found too many games at yard sales. I remember back in, I think it was either 2021 or early 2022, I had been successful at, I think, one yard sale. I'd gone to one yard sale where there was a lady who was selling like some VHS tapes. And I remember asking her, it was like multiple people. It was like a lady and her sister, and then like there was an uncle. It was like a whole family deal. And I remember asking the lady and saying, excuse me, ma'am, you wouldn't by any chance happen to have any video games, would you? And that's the line that all the YouTubers tell you to say. They say, always ask when you go to the yard sale. So I did just that. I asked if she had any video games. And sure enough, she said, oh, yes, I definitely do. I do. My nephew, it was either a nephew or her grandson. He's got a bunch of games he no longer plays. And I was like, oh, really? And I'm, mind you, at this time, I'm just keeping my composure. I'm staying calm. I'm keeping it cool. And I'm like, really? Tell me about them. What games does he have? And she starts to tell me about how he has N64 and how he had Super Nintendo and he had a whole bunch of box of games. So she goes, hang on right there. I'll go back and I'll get them for you. So she's running to the back and she goes and she gets them and she starts to bring some of them out. And I think she started to bring like some of the N64 stuff out. And as she's bringing it out, either her sister or somebody comes out and she's like, wait a minute. Whose stuff is that? Oh, is that Joey's stuff? Oh, hang on. Let me see if he wants to sell it. And in my mind, I'm like, it's always that one person. Of course. Why couldn't this lady just mind her business? But of course, to cut a long story short, the sister calls her son, asks him if he wants to sell. And at this point, I'm thinking, okay, maybe I can still get a deal here. Maybe it might not be as good of a deal as I thought it would be, but maybe I can still get a deal. But lo and behold, after that conversation that the lady has with her son, she comes back out and says, oh, actually, he's not going to be selling it. I thought he was selling it. He's not going to be selling it right now. But he's got some other stuff, and if you leave your name and number, we'll call you. I knew that never was going to happen because I knew ultimately that what they were going to do was go online, look and see how much it would cost. And if it had any value, then they were either going to keep it or try to sell it online or sell it for some crazy price. So that was one experience that I had. And once that happened to me at that yard sale, I kind of knew that it was the beginning of the end for yard sales. Just because everyone was starting to think that everything that they had was worth a ton of money. And subsequently, every yard sale that I went to after that was kind of the same thing. Either they didn't have anything, they had a bunch of like Xbox One games, some Xbox sports games, or if they did have anything that was decent, they wanted to charge beyond eBay prices for it. And so I think now in 2024, most people who have yard sales, or if they're doing any kind of sales, they're probably looking up the stuff online, and then when they have their yard sale, they're pretty much pricing it high. So if you're thinking that yard sales is a great way to go, and I mean, again, it depends on your area, right? There are still some parts of the country where I guess you can go to a yard sale and they'll have stuff that's super underpriced, and if you're able to find that stuff, then great. But I think on a larger scale, it's not happening. I don't think that these are things that are happening anymore, and I just don't think that you're gonna find that same type of luck now in 2024 when going out to look for video games. So yard sales is the first one that I don't think is a viable option anymore in 2024. The second method of collecting that I think has completely died is the Facebook Marketplace deals. I feel like Facebook Marketplace deals were, again, another avenue that a lot of folks used to go down to try and find games, to pick up games, to add to their collection. Now, I myself, I've never done a Facebook Marketplace deal. I've just never felt comfortable enough going to a random person's house off the internet to buy video games. It was never that serious to me. I never felt like it was something that I was comfortable doing. I just never felt like it. Now, if you live in a part of the country, again, or if you live in a part of the world where you feel safe enough to do that, you feel comfortable enough to do that, you trust whoever it is you're buying your stuff from, then by all means, do not listen to me and continue on your merry way, going to strangers' homes and buying their stuff, or meeting strangers to buy video games. Unfortunately, I feel like the popularity behind retro games and even Pokemon cards has gotten to a level where people are now getting robbed for their video games and for their Pokemon cards. I don't know if you've checked the news lately, but I've seen stories of burglars breaking into homes and breaking into video game stores to steal Pokemon cards and to steal video games. And so the more and more that these stories circulate and the more popular they become, the more people know what they have. So for me, it just doesn't make sense to put in all the effort to drive however far to meet a person. And I think the same can be said for many people. And I know that YouTube isn't the only barometer to check whether or not this is happening. But I mean, go to some of your favorite retro gamer pages. See when was the last time they've gone and done a Facebook Market deal, or when's the last time they've gone to a yard sale. I guarantee you they're becoming fewer and farther between because they're just not worth it. Because even if you do find someone online or on Facebook Marketplace willing to sell their collection, they're gonna sell it to you at the price of eBay. And so for all the time and the gas that you spend trying to work and coordinate this deal, you'll probably be better off just submitting some bids on eBay and hoping to get the lowest price. And so I think the Facebook Marketplace avenue also is dying down. I don't know if it's completely dead. It's probably not completely dead in all parts of the country, but I do think that it's no longer as viable of an option as it was a year or two ago. And I think that has just made collecting for retro games and retro consoles that much more difficult. Okay, now we're down to the last option, and I think this is the option that more people were choosing than the first two. I think this is something that was a lot easier for folks like myself who wanted to just keep it low key and do some retro game shopping with a low profile, and that is your thrift stores and that is your pawn shops. There was a point in time where you could go to Goodwill and find some pretty amazing stuff at really good prices. In fact, this copy that I have right here of Silent Hill 2, I purchased this Silent Hill 2 complete in box, mint condition from Goodwill. Can't remember exactly how much I paid for it, but I know I didn't pay what the going rate was, and I think Silent Hill 2 right now is probably like $110, $120 game is how much this goes for. But yeah, back in 2021, 2022, you could go into a Goodwill, and even if the Goodwill didn't have like grails. Even if they didn't have top tier games, you could still get like a Wii bundle with like, you know, maybe 5-10 games for like 40 bucks, 50 bucks. The last time I went to a Goodwill to try and buy like a Wii bundle, they wanted $225 for a standard Wii with one remote, one nunchuck, and like 10, you know, like Lego, you know, games. It was crazy. And so, and it's not just like at Goodwill, it's any other type of thrift or, you know, thrift shop. I have a thrift shop here near me, which was my go-to spot for handhelds. Somehow they always were able to get PSPs, PS Vitas. I remember one time they even had a PSP Go. I think that's like the smaller one. They were always picking up like great consoles. They had great consoles there. They always had Xboxes, PlayStation 2s, PlayStation 3s, and even really good games. I remember I did an episode, this is a long time ago, you'll have to go back, but I remember I did an episode where I went there one day and I picked up like a bunch of top dollar DS games like Contra 4, just a bunch of, you know, just a bunch of good games, and they were like $5-6 each. Now when I go to that store, they want like $250 for a DSi. They want $200 for a DS Lite. For a PSP, they want like $300, and I'm just like, what? Who's pricing this stuff? Like, what's going on? Like, it's crazy. And so it's just gotten out of control when it comes to the thrift stores. And what's even worse is I think what's affecting it is two things. One, I think that when the really good stuff comes into those stores, the employees pick at it first. So, you know, you're gonna get like whatever's picked over from the employees. They're gonna pick the good stuff first. They're gonna get the cheapest prices on it, and then they're probably turning around and either selling it to someone or backdooring it to someone that they know, or giving it to friends and family. So that's the first layer that you have to go through when it comes to Goodwills and thrift stores. The second layer, or the second barrier that you have to go through, is that now they're putting all their stuff online. They want you to bid for it on eBay. And I've already known that like Goodwill has had its own eBay store, and I've actually purchased stuff from the Goodwill eBay store before. I purchased a DS Lite from the Goodwill eBay store one time, and it was in really good condition, but I think I got burnt on the second purchase. I think I purchased like a PlayStation 1 or something, and it didn't work. And you know, when you buy stuff from Goodwill, they tell you there's no returns. So it's not even like you can be in the Goodwill store, you can get a chance to plug it in, turn it on, see if it works, test it out. You can't do any of that when you're buying it online. So they've created these extra barriers when it comes to the Goodwills that just make it not as worthwhile trying to purchase retro games through those channels. And the same thing could be said for pawn shops. And again, this could just be the pawn shops that are local to me. But even the local pawn shops are hip to the game, man. They want to charge you an arm and a leg for a Wii. You know, they want you to ante up and pay $150 for a standard Wii with like, you know, Mario Galaxy or something like that. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. So I think that those three channels, pawn shops, thrift stores, along with yard sales, and then Facebook Marketplace, those three channels, I think, are no longer as viable as they used to be when it comes to collecting video games, because they're not worth the effort. For the time, if you value time, if you put a dollar amount to your time and you value your time and energy, and you factor that into whatever it is you're going to pay by buying games through those channels, you're going to realize that it nets out to the same price as if you would have just got it on Mercari or bought it on eBay. And that's in general, right? I'm not talking about the anomalies. Yes, is there a chance that you can go through one of these channels and get a really good deal? Sure. Do those things still happen? Sure, they're few and far between. But the amount of hours and days that you would have to spend just trying to catch that anomaly, it's all going to wash out. It all washes out. It all evens out in the end. And so I think that if you're wanting to get into retro games, I think an easier avenue or an easier path of resistance, and you're all gonna be shocked when I say this, but GameStop. GameStop is now investing heavily into their retro selections. I've actually gone to a GameStop near me that had a wide selection of DSIs, DS Lites, new 3DS XLs, And they're pricing them at fair prices. The difference is with GameStop, at least you can use your membership points, at least you can use coupons, and then you can bundle at GameStop. For instance, I know right now they're offering 15% off all used games when you buy any console. So that's not something that you're going to get on eBay or something like that, or from, from a yard sale. So GameStop is a viable option for paying maybe just below market price for your retro games. And if you have a GameStop account, if you're a member and you collect points, then you can leverage your points, leverage your membership, leverage your $5 off each month to try and take advantage of some of the deals that they have there. Or you can do what I do. A lot of times I wait until like around the holidays, where they typically do their buy two, get one, or their buy three, get one. That's a great way for you to rack up on a bunch of used retro games, because those usually apply to the retro games. Although last year there was some funny business going on, because when I would try to buy certain retro games, which should be under the used category, somehow they weren't a part of the deal. They weren't a part of the buy two, get one. So GameStop, you got to figure that out. If it's used, then it should apply. I don't care what generation it is. I don't care how old it is. It should apply. Let it fly, man. Stop trying to hate on us retro collectors. So, those are my thoughts in terms of collecting. I know spring is right around the corner. Yard sale season is going to come right back up. And I know you're going to see a bunch of videos on YouTube talking about, oh man, yard sale season's back. Let's get out there. Don't be shocked if when you go to these yard sales, the prices are the same thing that you see on Mercari, or the same thing that you would see on eBay, or even in your local game store. Because people are hip to the game, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. Sellers should get top dollar for their games. If they know that they've got good stuff, why not? I'm not hating on that. If you know you've got good games, sell them and get as much as you can for them, because that's what this country's about. Capitalism, baby. Survival of the fittest. So I'm not hating on anyone who wants to get top dollar for their games. Do you? This is just a word to the wise for those who are thinking about continuing their collection this spring or summer. Just be on the lookout. Don't depend heavily on Facebook or on yard sales and thrift stores. Get creative and, learn how to make deals, learn how to negotiate, and learn how to bargain, because that will probably be the best way for you to get a good deal. But that does it for me. I'm the Y2K Collector. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. If any of these avenues are still viable for you where you live, let me know. It could just be a thing that's local to me, and it may just be something that I'm experiencing. But it's always good to hear from the community. Hope you're having a good weekend. Take it easy.